Please listen carefully.
Well, hello, universe, and welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Kristy Jansen.
And I'm Summers McKay.
And we're part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of our days to get us all focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, home office-worthy, remote office party-worthy podcast. Today is Friday, the 29th of October, 2021. Hi. Hey, party girl.
Hey, good morning, Summers. Yeah, you're right. I've been having some fun here in my house.
We had sort of a crazy morning here at the Optimist Daily. One of our staff members celebrated a birthday, and we did this wild and crazy thing where we gathered together, two of us on Zoom, well, everybody on Zoom, but basically the three people were together in Santa Barbara and three people together were, in Amsterdam. And yeah, it was the closest thing we've had to like an in-person office meeting in a really long time. How did it go, Kristy, to be in human form with our colleagues?
Oh, it feels so good. It felt so good just to have people. I realize how much fun it is to kind of entertain because I had everybody over to my actual house. It wasn't it wasn't the office. So I got to make them espressos in my espresso maker.
Feel like a hostess again.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Love it. So it was funny. And I think that it was probably we've talked a little bit about, what's the future of work look like and do we all come together or not? And I will say I had sort of forgotten we were having like our little gathering because I was running all about, and then I like slid into my chair and hopped onto Zoom and I was like, oh, holy goats, today is a special day. And instead, you guys had sort of the ritual of everyone, like, I don't know, bathing before work and getting together. And you guys all looked so cute. And
we put on real clothes.
Right. Like real clothes. Like I'm just wearing like my Halloween sweatshirt. I think that it is interesting to talk about that there is, as much as the benefits of working from home offer to so many of us who otherwise would, my life is more sustainable because I work from home. But seeing all of you come together and just sort of the peace and community and joy that came from just even like watching you guys, as well as, we've watched the folks in the Amsterdam office, all come together, that there's just like this gentle grace with being together. So it was really lovely to see you all together. And I will admit to being a little bit jealous that, in between like having my plumber here and taking my dog out for a walk and answering, my FedEx store, that I couldn't just be fully present. So Anyway, remote workers, we have our benefits, but there's nothing that replaces community, right?
I think and that's that craving of connection is something that we all have to take seriously and find ways of connecting, whatever makes sense. It just felt good to be on the Zoom, even with our Amsterdam friends, and just spend a little bit of not busy time because we were really joking around and laughing and going to the dark place, which is something sometimes
where we have a secret room in our office called the Pessimist Hourly. So because sometimes when you are in the business of optimism, you have to dive into all the things in the world that seem really challenging. And sometimes we have to get a little, our dark humor comes out. But, optimism is not about rose-colored glasses. We say that over and over. And in fact, today's stories are also not about rose-colored glasses.
Right.
They are about educating and informing. So do you want to educate and inform on something not rose-colored glass first?
Yeah, let me talk about my story first, because Sunday is when the UN climate conference is beginning over at Glasgow, and it's going to be in the news a lot this next couple of weeks as that conference goes on. That's the COP26 or COP26. I'm sure people will be hearing about it, reading about it all over the place. And it is something that we cover often on the Optimist Daily, the climate crisis. And responses to it, and how are we going to mitigate its effects, how are we going to adapt to climate change, what can we do, what are the solutions. But sometimes we get caught up in the jargon, and having a solid understanding of what's being talked about and understanding the different meanings can be very useful. So this article, the headline is A Guide to Common Climate Jargon. And it is talking about what are the different key terms which we'll be hearing about and what do they actually mean. So this talks about many of the bigger ones. It talks about mitigation, which is defined as a human intervention that reduces emissions or enhances and sinks greenhouse gases now. So it's mitigating the downstream effects of climate change. For example, phasing out fossil fuels ASAP will mitigate future emissions and mitigate future warming and mitigate some of the most negative effects. But there's also adaptation, which is something different. And what that means is talking about taking action to live with the effects of climate change that have already started happening and that will continue to happen in the future. So that means building infrastructure adjustments like a seawall or tree planting to cool urban areas, painting your streets white, limiting construction in your coastlines, taking it out of the forests, or if you are building in areas where there's high fire risk, use materials that aren't like tinder and toxic, right? But so that's an adaptation. For example, helping corals that are evolving to favor algae, planting things specifically that will be prepared to handle higher temperatures or drier weather or wetter weather, depending on the destabilized climate, however that was. That's another one to really think about. And we're really now at the point where just mitigating climate change isn't going to do it because there's already a lot of it that's baked in. So now we're having to look at adaptations. One adaptation is carbon dioxide removal or capture. That has been talked about a lot. We talk about that, the sort of direct air capture. What that refers to is removing carbon directly from the atmosphere. That's going to try to mitigate some of the warming, but it'll also be an adaptation to help suck, sort of have those carbon sinks. Carbon neutral is another term, or carbon net zero. And that is, having CO2 emissions that are balanced globally by anthropogenic carbon dioxide removal over a specific period of time, which means planting trees, doing some regenerative kinds of agriculture, anything that sinks carbon, but it also means the direct air capture. Tipping point is a term you've likely heard, talking about melting ice sheets. It talks about the point at which it's too late to stop the effects of climate change. And some are arguing that it's already happening, but as we get further down the road, it'll happen even faster. So that's something, unprecedented transition is a term that'll probably come up in the next couple of weeks at COP26. And that's talking about the action on climate change at a scale that we've not done before. And that means coming together and saying, okay, no more, we're actually going to turn off the natural gas and go all renewable. We're going to do something that's going to be kind of like a moonshot type of purposeful transition, getting off of fossil fuels and trying to really change our behavior, getting the power grid to 100% renewable, phasing out ICE-powered cars. Sustainable development is a term which means living in a way that offers a high standard of living for current and future populations without sacrificing a habitable planet. And then also there's the idea of abrupt change, which it's already happening in many places. It means a large-scale change that's taking place over just a few decades. Mass coral bleaching, the wildfires that are happening, the intensely powerful hurricanes and the storm dumps that are happening. All of these things are maybe examples of abrupt changes.
So I think it's interesting, Kristy, because a lot of these key words are actually kind of categories on the Optimist Daily. We talk about sustainable development. And one of the things that I think is so important about this article is not assuming that we all know the vocabulary, right? So when you talk about carbon neutral, it's important for those of us who are educated or familiar with the language not to just assume that it's a foregone conclusion that everyone gets it, right? And in order for us to affect change in this world, we've got to give everybody, or as many people who are solutions focused, a similar vocabulary to work with. So I really like that the writers chose this article, because if you happen to be somebody who's an advocate, don't assume that the folks you're talking to necessarily understand what you're saying, and don't be afraid to give them definitions or clarity.
Right. And
yeah.
And I mean, this is not exactly a solution article, although it talks about solutions that are embedded in some of the concepts.
I think definitions are solutions. I'll challenge you on that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. I like that. But having a common language is super important. As we've all seen that when we're talking past each other, by not having a common language, it just leads to more disconnection, and you don't feel that communion, which is so important.
Exactly. Well, I was having a conversation earlier today with a colleague who was talking about, tell us about your path on world domination. And I was like, nah, let's talk about it as world elevation. And I think as we elevate our world to a new chapter, language, acceptance, and information is how we're going to get there. So good pick on your article today.
Thank you. What do you want to talk about?
All right. Guess who's on the parenting beat? No big shocker here, right? So my headline reads, to fight child obesity, family and friends need to accept kids as they are. Now, any parent who is raising children, of course, we're worried about their health and nutrition. Many of us as adults are worried about our own health and nutrition and weight gain struggles. So recently, there was a study that helped us understand that the successful lowering of child's body mass index takes more than just healthy foods and physical activities. While healthy foods and physical activity are really important factors, childhood obesity researchers have actually looked into human development and family science and understand that acceptance from family and friends is critical in slowing the weight gain with children obesity. Now, this study got into general understanding that certainly parents needed to tap in to keep journals and be aware of familiarity with what their kids are doing food-wise and the activity that they're also doing. So an input-output sort of documentation to understand, but also really, really knowing that family and peer acceptance became critical for kids in improving their BMI. So a randomized trial involved more than 500 first graders from 29 Oklahoma schools who were at risk for obesity, which meant their BMI was above the 75th percentile. And of course, BMI, like any measure of health or wellness is relative, but it is the most operating index to talk about obesity at this point. First, they set these kids into 3 different groups: monitoring family lifestyle intervention, a family dynamics intervention, or peer group intervention, and determining the most effective way to improve their health and wellness. Now, the most important of all of these, right? There was family lifestyle intervention, which was documenting the food. There was peer intervention, which was like allowing peers to sort of manage each other.
Well, teaching them to have a more accepting tone and behavior towards each other, even if there's a kid who's got extra weight on him,
who's heavier or lighter than another child, right? And then there's also sort of family dynamic, which is helping children and parents effectively manage their feelings about emotional eating. And this showed that it may reduce their tendency to eat when stressed or upset. So teaching children how to manage negative emotions, express themselves well, value their uniqueness, while simultaneously parents were taught to value their children's emotions, comfort and understand their children, support their problem solving, and accept children as they are. So it turns out that none of these solutions are siloed. I know I beat that drum all the time, right? Everything happens in concert. But Kristy, you and I both grew up in a time when handing your 12-year-old a food journal and telling her she needed to lose weight was like a pretty super common thing.
It happened to me,
right?
My food was actually restricted. I was weighed on a daily basis, and guess what? I developed bulimia.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it developed, and we talk about this, parental generational trauma around food and wellness, and the generation that preceded you and I as parents really hyper valued food restriction, low-fat diets, a lot of this that caused severe pandemic anorexia, which then led to sort of a pandemic of bulimia, right? This combination of withholding didn't actually teach our generations and the generations before us how to truly develop healthy relationships and non-emotional relationships with food, and instead see it as sustenance. But I think that I like this article because I have struggled with my own food journey and my own weight journey. Kristy and I have always been very transparent about that on the Optimist Daily. And what I love about this article is it's reminding us as parents not to pass on our generational trauma and to teach our kids differently.
And something that I've learned in my personal journey is that I only ever really get anywhere when I accept myself for where I'm at, and then I can go forward. And I think it's the same thing with our kids. You have to accept where they're at and help them accept themselves. And only from that place of acceptance and social acceptance can you then build stronger habits towards healthy eating, regular exercise, and having that emotional and mental flexibility and resiliency to move forward in your life. So I think this is really important. A great solution to talk about.
I do too. It's like normally we don't go so deep and serious on a Friday, but I think these are really good things for us as we embark onto the holiday weekend. And like parents, just like don't give your kids a hard time about Halloween candy. Everybody have a great Halloween weekend.
Boundaries are good. I think that's not necessarily, but it's not about weight. It's about not getting too much sugar.
Exactly. Well, yeah. Anyway, it's funny because like Halloween this weekend is on a Sunday night, right? So it is going to be a heck of a Monday. I think you and I are going to have to pre-record Monday because I'm not sure how Monday morning is going to go for me. But hey, listen, if you guys want to read and be inspired more on the Optimist Daily, we've got some other great headlines today. Dutch pension giant ABP is to divest from fossil fuel producers. Yes, another one checking that box. Well done. Research yields surprising discovery about the benefits of green tea. I think green tea offsets Halloween candy, right? 5 easy ways to up your daily water intake. Stuck indoors? Here's 7 ways to introduce more nature into your routine. Oh, good old Warren Buffett has a secret to success. Guess what? Warren Buffett's a fan of optimism. Kristy, what else do we have?
Well, Kernza could be the agricultural grain of the future. This is a new thing that I've never heard about, but I guess it's a good, solid, healthy food that
that plus breadfruit. That plus breadfruit. We're gonna just everything's better.
Paris is on target to become a 100% bicycle-friendly city by 2026. And then Josh Cavallo is the first openly gay male top-level professional soccer player. That's kind of a significant milestone for that sport. That and more on the Optimist Daily. Go check it out on theoptimistdaily.com. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to today's Optimist Daily update. We promise to keep sharing positive solution-based stories with ideas on how you can participate in the changing world to help ensure it is changed for the good. And as we always are asking you, if you're not already, please consider becoming an emissary on theoptimistdaily.com. And for starting at just $5 a month, you can help support reader-funded independent journalism that takes a positive spin on some of the darkest topics and helps us look at them again from a solutions mindset. That's what we do here.
Here's what we do here. Everybody, thank you for helping us keep the Optimist Daily free to all who need it, supported by those who can. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on Monday. We'll be back with more solutions.